Today on Diamond Cuts, Money Talks. That alone might be the other reason why he's so high up there. But then again, he's got biceps as big as Evan's head. So
and that is not an exaggeration. You will see if anyone ever meets him, they could chime in and be like, actually, they're bigger than that. Oh my gosh.
It's time to talk life, leadership, the NFL, and some other sports too, with Lou Diamond and Evan Money here on Diamond Cuts Money Talks.
So we are back. I am Lou Diamond.
And I'm Evan Money.
And this is Diamond Cuts Money Talks, the show about life, leadership, the NFL, and other sports too. How you doing there, Evan?
Oh, I'm absolutely fantastic, Lou. How are you?
I'm getting fantastic. I guess it is, the fifth week of quarantine at the time we're recording this. So this is week 5, day 2. I start my days on Sunday for some reason. It's the New York areas, it's getting better. We've kind of hit that peak. I think we're starting to slide down. It'll take a little bit, but we're doing better. We're doing what we can do.
Yay!
I'm excited to talk a little football today, though. For the listeners out there, you need to know that the definition of Evan and I preparing is we come up with the 3 things we're going to talk about, and then we go off on our own and then just come back and see how it all meshes together, which I think works well.
Yes, there's a surprise element that the GMs and the owners are loving, and the feedback has been great.
Yes. So as they listen and they get more information, I'm going to start off. We're going to do our trivia, our timely topics, and our timelessness. But let's hit the trivia, because now it's my turn to ask the question.
Yeah, and you were promising big stuff, Lou, so you got to deliver here.
I had initially problems, and I went down the road that I said he's probably going to get it, but it'll be a fun topic of conversation. I think it's good. So we have obviously had NFL players who've won the Heisman Trophy, right? We know those. And we've had NFL players who have been the season's most valuable player. And there are those we may even remember more than the NFL's MVP. We might remember the Super Bowl MVP, the guy that was the MVP in that particular game. Correct. However, there are only 2 players that have won the Heisman, the NFL MVP, and the Super Bowl MVP in their career.
Ooh.
Can you name these 2 individuals?
Wow. Okay, and this is in the Super Bowl era?
So obviously. Yeah. Let me make it clear.
Okay.
In some of they obviously didn't win these at the same time. That's not a requirement, because you can't win the Heisman at the same time. Obviously, it's college. So in their careers, yes, they've won the Heisman, the NFL MVP, and the Super Bowl MVP.
And the Super Bowl. Okay, I want to make sure.
Yes. So let's put it this way. They at least played a portion of their career in the Super Bowl year.
Okay. All right. Ooh, wow. MVP of the league.
Yes.
Super Bowl MVP and the Heisman. Wow.
And there are there's only 2 of them.
Yes. Whoa. That's one of those. Oh, I know that. Then you're like, well, no, can't be him. Nope. Can't be him. Can't be him. Can't be him.
Whoa. Hold on. Note to self. Producers, play the Jeopardy theme music.
Yes. Yes.
There it goes. There it goes. All right.
My goodness gracious. Obviously, pick any 2, right? The classic adage, right? You can have it fast, great quality, or on time, right? Which do you want? 2 out of 3. I don't know.
Do you need a hint? Would a hint help?
No, I don't like hints, but I will tell you on a life leadership lesson, this is what I teach my kids all the time. We never say, I don't know. We say, I haven't learned yet.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
So I haven't learned yet, Lou, who have won all three in their career. Give it to me.
It's funny. It's whether or not you haven't learned yet or you just completely forgot. When you get older, you might just actually forget that you learned it. But that's, you haven't learned it yet. I like that. Okay, so the two players that have won the Heisman, the NFL MVP and the Super Bowl MVP, are Roger Staubach.
Oh, Roger, Captain America himself. That's right.
Who for the record, won the Heisman in 1971 for the U.S. Naval Academy.
Yes.
And he won the MVP for the Dallas Cowboys sometime in the 70s, and he was a Super Bowl MVP. I forgot which one.
Yes.
So he's got those. So we had somebody from the Dallas Cowboys, and the other individual, this one you're going to kick yourself for, played for the Raiders, Marcus Allen.
Oh, Marcus is no angel. Oh, wait. Marcus was league MVP, really?
Yes, Marcus Allen in 1985. Actually, I'm sorry, 1971. By the way, Roger Staubach was the MVP for the NFL. In 1961, he won the Heisman.
Yes.
But Marcus Allen won the NFL MVP in 1985, and he won the Heisman Trophy at USC, and obviously he was on the Raiders, and he was the Super Bowl MVP in that 83-84 Super Bowl against the Redskins.
And the greatest 73-yard run ever.
He turned one way, went the other way. Yeah.
Yes.
Marcus Allen. Now, just for those that were listening, there are 8 players.
Hold on. Well done, Lou.
Yeah, you like that? That was good. Good question, right?
Well done.
Good question. So here are the other parts of the.
Well, no, I got to give you part 2 real quick. I got to interrupt you for part 2.
Sure.
So I'll have you guess which of those 2 trivia winners have I met personally.
Oh, I think you shared this, so I already know. I see that. So I learned that you got to meet Roger Staubach, who is one hell of a leader.
I have not, but I did get to meet Marcus Allen.
You met him at the practice facility?
No, Marcus was, when we broke in, nobody was there. That's why we were able to get in. But I actually ran into Marcus a couple years ago on a flight to the first ever, when they did the first national championship, the new one.
Yeah.
So I met him on a plane, and it was so hilarious because I just watched this documentary like a week beforehand.
Oh, that's cool.
So I shook his hand on the plane. I said, "Hey, Marcus, pleasure to meet you." I go, there's 2 kinds of people, those that know and those that don't. He laughed. And then we had a good conversation. Then we talked afterwards. I actually invited him to our suite. I was like, "Hey, we got a suite. We got room for you." And he's like, "Oh, thanks so much." No problem. But yeah, he was class act. Just
I can't remember. I thought it was you that had met Roger Staubach, and that was recently. I'm going to find out who that was. Whatever listener that was, send me a message. Let me know.
Yes, but we are planning. We are planning. This is in the works here. I am planning to do something with Roger at one of our seminars where, as our Grow, Thrive, Revive, the Thrive part. But how about this, Lou? Would you be excited to come to a seminar where we're going to, again, Grow, Thrive, Revive our businesses, and we're going to take a break, run over to the Dallas Star, and play football with Roger Staubach? How cool
would that be? Hell yeah. Come on.
Catch a TD pass from Roger Staubach. How cool would that be?
That would be amazing. He'd probably break my hands even in his late age right now, in his 70s.
Okay, but I stole your thunder because you got more good trivia.
So here's so for those that, this rare trifecta of trophies has only been won by 2 people. But there have been 8 NFL MVPs that have won the Heisman. I won't, but I'll do them really quickly. I'll do them in Frank Sinwich from the 40s on Georgia and Detroit, Paul Hornig from obviously the Notre Dame and Green Bay, Roger Staubach from Navy and Dallas, O.J. Simpson, not supposed to spend too much time talking about him, USC and Buffalo, Earl Campbell from Texas and Houston.
Houston Oilers.
Houston Oilers. I love that song. Marcus Allen, USC and the Raiders. Barry Sanders, Oklahoma State and Detroit. And finally,
greatest running back of all time, by the way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Although Jim Brown might tie. Anyway, Cam Newton, Auburn and Carolina. So those are the ones that have won NFL MVP and the Heisman. There are 4 Heisman winners who won Super Bowl MVPs. Obviously, Roger Staubach and Marcus Allen. And the other two are Jim Plunkett, who won the Heisman at Stanford and was a quarterback for the Oakland Raiders in 1981. He was the MVP. And that really amazing guy who played with special teams, one of the very few special teams MVPs, which was Desmond Howard.
Oh, yes, Desmond Howard from the Packers. Yes.
Yeah, 1997. Yes. Ran the ball back, ran the punt return back for a touchdown, I believe.
Yes.
Right? So, that's why we came up with this question. But I thought that was cool. Roger Staubach.
Done, Lou Diamond.
Yeah, right.
That is impressive.
Okay. Well, I could do best research out of all of them. So we decided, listeners, from the timely topics, because we are, oh my goodness, just under 2 weeks away from the NFL virtual draft. which literally, as at the moment of our recording right now, both ESPN and the NFL Network are working together to coordinate the craziest televised online capturing of what's going on in this virtual draft. It's going to be pretty funny, I actually think. But, it'll be what it is. It'll be like the old days, just mixed with new technology.
Now, I still want to go back to the smoky room, but on that, Lou, you and I are both going to laugh, LOL, and fall out of our chairs because I know they're going to show a GM who's smoking or hitting a cigar.
Oh, I'm going to fall out of my chair.
Put him on the screen.
You're going to get somebody.
The smoky room draft. Yes,
they got it. So now we have that, and one of the things that Evan reached out to me this week about, which is really interesting, is how, I don't know if we want to say how deep, but how interesting the wide receiver position has become in the NFL draft. Maybe why don't you give a little foray to why we think this is a key topic to talk about today?
Well, I want to give credit where credit is due, but I don't have the...
I'll find it while you're looking.
Oh, you dig it up. So I read this great article on NFL.com from a writer talking about, wide receiver position and why all of a sudden the wide receiver position is translating into instant production, whereas in the past, a la quarterbacks as well, it used to take a lot longer for wide receivers to pay fruition, if any. And it was always that, okay, we'll draft them high and hope, but you never know. And it's always like, oh, do they have a challenge with the system? What's going on? It just always seemed to take wide receivers a long time to get with the program. And we saw that as well early on with quarterbacks of just like the college game was so different from the NFL game that, even just terms that we use today, like pro style offense, there was just this great divide between the college and the pro game. And wide receiver position just tended to be that, why can't these guys get it, right? So with that, in this article, they talked about all his...
By the way, I'll interrupt. It's Tom Blair. Tom Blair was the original content editor for this. So Tom Blair, he's the one who wrote the article. You could find it on NFL.com. We'll put the links in the show notes.
Okay, yes. Cool. So salute to Tom. So you and I have agreed and disagreed with some of the things that he came in with.
Right.
But what's unique about this draft, though, is it's kind of this culmination is because there's 25 wide receivers that are projected to go in the first 3 rounds.
Which is crazy.
It's like this massive, like, what are you talking about? And so you combine that with last year's breakouts, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown, all these rookies that were like hit the ground running, like plug and play, like, oh my gosh, like all of a sudden we've turned the corner, right? We've got instant production from this position. Let's hurry up and draft them. And so I think part of this is we can attribute this. Obviously, the NFL is now adopting much more of the college offense. They're realizing,
weird, right? Isn't that weird? Is it like you figured the other way around for so many years? But yeah.
Well, they're figuring again with short, like everyone's got like it's so funny when they announce it. I just saw a thing about the Lions that Martha Ford or Firestone Ford, the owner of the Lions, is telling the coach that they have to win now. Like, that owner isn't wanting to win now. So there's this thing about, hey, we don't have time to develop anymore. We got to make things happen. But here's what's interesting. What I think, Lou, kind of diamond in the rough here that I dug out through this. I started looking back. You know who the first one to kind of turn this corner was? Really, if you want to go back in the history? Remember the K-gun with Jim Kelly?
I think that's true. I was going to say that earlier on because, I guess straight out of Miami into Buffalo, he was they were bringing receivers out pretty early. I could see that. Is that where
remember,
it started?
that was the beginning of like this all hurry up all the time, spread them, the classic 7-on-7 mindset that a lot of kids play now of just, hey, we're going to spread them out, throw it, throw. So you think about how far ahead of his time that was in the 90s, right? Early 90s. And then the other person that gets a lot of credit for ushering, kind of this, the person that, bringing it in, kind of the game changer mindset. Remember when Chip Kelly came over to the NFL from Oregon?
Yes.
He's going to bring this run and gun style, and, he was paving the way, and he kind of got a bad rap. But here's something that a lot of people don't know is, well, let me go back. And the reason I think both of those offenses never, even though 4 straight Super Bowls, you gotta tip your hat to that. I mean, something's going on there. But I think the reason there are flaws in those is because they both came in with the all or nothing mindset. Like, it's got to be this way all the time. Like the running gun. Like, hey, we can't actually take a snap from center and slow it down. And same with Chip Kelly. We got to be hurrying up all the time. We got to be hurrying to get water. Hurry. And this all or nothing never worked. But here's the guy that made it work. You ready for this, Lou?
I'm ready.
Ready for this. Bill Belichick. A lot of people don't know this, but Bill Belichick, when Chip Kelly was at Oregon, he hired Chip Kelly to teach him the hurry up offense.
That's pretty cool.
And he said, hey, how are you doing it, right? How are we doing without signals? How are we doing it? And that's when you saw the Patriots, whenever they were sluggish, right, they would just go to the hurry up like whenever, right? Middle of the first quarter. Sometimes they start the game with it. Sometimes it would be in the middle of the third quarter. It's just whenever they felt like they needed it, they would just run to the hurry up. And you saw that in the Rams Super Bowl. They went off script, just straight hurry up. Hey, let's go back to old school. And so Belichick actually got that from Kelly, but Belichick realized you can't do it all the time, right? You have to mix and match. And so what's happening now is that coordinators are finally figuring out the Belichick approach of saying, look, instead of forcing these receivers, these people to work with our system, by the time they get to the pro, it's too late to change these guys. So it's what can they do? What are they good at? And how can I make that work? How can we change our system? So I think finally people are figuring out the whole Belichick thing, which all leads to the success to the wide receivers. But what did you come up with as you were digging into this, Lou?
So what I came up with, it's really interesting. There were 4 key points that the author of the article, Tom Blair, came up with, who's on Twitter. We can tag him on Twitter.
Okay.
So he came up with 4 key points. 1, they're better prepared for the NFL. There's more of them. They're supersized. I'll talk about that in a second. I'm sorry, 5 comments. The NFL is better prepared for them. That was to your point about the college offenses. And they're good at football, which I laughed at, but I understood what they were getting at. It isn't just about the athleticism or the speed. It was, these are true football players. Something really interesting hit me about all of this. I think what is kind of weird is the most important position in football when it comes to drafting a player, if you were to start today, is the quarterback. There's not even a chance about it. The amount of money that they're making justifies that. And that's where I wanted to get to quickly before I talk about all these wide receivers. There's so many of them that it's actually hurting their market value in the NFL. So when you think of it from a GM point of view, you could put your Belichick hat on and you probably can get a steal in a later round. The difference between that 3rd round receiver and that 4th round receiver is not that much. And you're probably talking a lot from a management point of view, from your pocketbook point of view.
Well, let me chime in there, because here's a reason that's also hurting people is success at that position.
Yeah.
So let me give you a perfect example. I love when segues work and we never even plan to talk about it. So you look at Henry Ruggs. He's listed anywhere from people's number 1 to number 4 to number 5. I've seen him all over the boards. Henry Ruggs is going to go in the 1st round, and he needs to pay Tyreek Hill, because he would not go in the 1st round if people hadn't seen Tyreek Hill's success with the Chiefs. Tyreek Hill was picked in the 5th round. Okay. 5th round. He had crazy speed. Now, he dropped for a couple of reasons. He had some off-the-field issues and came from a small school. But he was a fifth-round guy with everybody. It wasn't like, oh, my gosh, who's that guy? I didn't realize how fast he was. Everybody saw the cheetah, right? So he was picked in the 5th round. But thanks to his success, now all these teams go, oh, that's what you do with speed. Oh, okay. I see what we can do with this. So the success that people have been able to get at that position also hurts them because now, or it helps them because now it's like, ooh, well, there's a plethora of them, but now I know how to use it. So some are going to get pushed up and some are going to get pushed down. So it's really interesting.
It is. And I guess the way I look at this is that the talent is so huge that the difference between that first round wide receiver and someone like Tyreek Hill is probably what I think is the most important stat that Tom highlighted in his article, and that is this supersizedness. Just Mike Evans, I've touted him in the last show. Obviously, wide receiver for the Buccaneers, came out of Texas A&M, top 10 pick, absolute superstar. And he is an absolute beast. He is physically unbelievably tall, unbelievably strong. And when you think about the average size of a defensive cornerback in the NFL, you just throw it up high. And Brady, if Brady was picking his teams and he basically said, well, I can go anywhere I want warmer weather. And, if I just throw it up, this guy's going to catch the ball. There are a number of receivers that physically resemble Mike that are in this draft that are up really high. And those will be the ones, and when they say, why did they pick this one up higher? I think that might be that supersizedness, not only with the speed, but just being able to be that big and that strong. And I think as to the point that these wide receivers are being instantly successful is because more so than ever, these major college programs are making them NFL players at a much younger age. And they already have all the physical tools. They're not only so tall. I mean, you remember there used to be that whole thing, the college player would leave the college ranks and then he'd have to fill out. They're filled out.
Yep.
Up there. So that's where I think I do weigh back onto that stress that there's so many of them that a miss at wide receiver is not in the draft is not nearly as upsetting as a miss at other positions like offensive tackle or quarterback because of the fact that there are so many of them. I'm hoping this year that we get a good snapshot of it. Everything goes in peaks and valleys in the draft. I bet you get to a point that they look at this draft year and say, wow, they drafted 15 of them in the first 2 rounds, and that was way too many. Only 2 of them turned out to be worthwhile. So we'll see. But it's the most exciting. It's the second most exciting position, certainly out there. The quarterback has to be the one to throw it, and someone's got to pick it up at the other end.
Yes. And then I got 2 quick things for you on that one, because you talk about the size factor, right? We saw, let's go back to what was it, Mike Millen and the Lions, right? When they just first rounder was a high pick, like top 5, right? Was receiver. None of them panned out except Megatron, his last pick.
Who fits who? If I stood him next to Michael Evans and you didn't know put them at the same age, they'd be pretty close.
Yeah. But that size doesn't always translate. And I'll tell you one player that I want to talk about real quick, just because of the intangibles as far as putting on that GM hat and what are you looking for. So my favorite receiver in the draft coming up is actually CeeDee Lamb. And that's because of his ability to run after the catch and to not just do that, but to actually break tackles.
Yeah.
Okay. Like Tyreek Hill, he's not breaking a lot of tackles. He's just,
but that's because no one's catching him.
Yeah, exactly. So you got the cheetah factor, right? But I want a guy that when it's 3rd down and short, I can give him the ball. And we all know it's a game of inches, right? And he's going to break a tackle and get a first down, because if you can convert on 3rd down, you're winning Super Bowls. So he's not the biggest dude, 6'2", 190. I mean, that's somebody that they're going to want to fill out, right? At 6'2", 190.
And he's
also 15, 20 pounds on him.
And he's 1 year younger, right? Because he's a junior. So like, he's not even, but that's most of them at this point. Look,
yeah. So I'm looking for those things like, hey, let's be able to break those tackles, not necessarily catch the ball, but I think breaking tackles is so overlooked. Everyone wants, I want the guy that can go deep and make the spectacular catch. Hey, I want the guy on third down who can move the chains. But I'm going to tell you another segue, ADD segue to a funny story. We talk about size. And Lou, I know you've been around, a lot of superstars and been in different places on the East Coast and, here me on the West Coast. We've all had our experiences of being starstruck at one time or another. And it's so funny because when you see other people starstruck, you're just like, what's wrong with you? Get a life. Then it happens to you and you're like, it always catches people by surprise, right? Like, oh my gosh, look, there's so-and-so. And you're like, wait a minute, I just got starstruck. What's going on? I'm going to tell you time, Lou, but the time I got awestruck.
Oh.
Okay, this is the time I got awestruck. So I was on my bride and I, again, for those that don't know, remember, we get remarried in a different state or country every year. So we were coming back from Hawaii, dream wedding in Maui. We took a red eye back. And I'm up stretching, I'm moving around, and I look like 3 rows back. And do you know who I see, Lou Diamond, on my flight? I see Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh, dear God. Wait, I'm hoping you were sitting in row 1.
So I'm looking back, and I'm like, and we're on a big plane, so it was nice. And I'm like, that's Larry Fitzgerald. But it was a red eye, so you're kind of like, it was like towards the end of the flight, you're kind of groggy, and I'm just like, it's hard to mistake, Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, he does have long hair, lots of dreadish look. Yes. So yeah, tough to and he very distinctive looks. I agree.
Yes, unique guy. So I'm like, and I'm pointing to my buddy. We brought a couple with us, and I'm trying to get his attention and not bother everybody else. Just like, it's, mouthing, it's Larry Fitzgerald. Like on our flight, look at this. So just a reminder. So I've, my athletic prowess has got me as far as one day in camp in an arena football team. I've had a sports talk radio show. So I've been around athletes, been around big human beings, right? So I'm no stranger to, be inside the locker room, get around big guys. So all of that. So I get off the plane and I'm on the, what do you call the thing that comes up to the plane? The tunnel thing?
The jetway.
The jetway. Okay, so I'm on the jetway, and I like to get out of, I'm like halfway up the jetway. I'm like one of the first people off the plane. I'm halfway up the jetway, waiting for everybody grog. It's 5 a.m. You're off the plane, right? I'm halfway up the jetway, and here comes Larry Fitzgerald walking up the jetway. And I'm halfway up, and we're already looking at each other eye to eye. And I'm just like, wow, is he really that big? And as he got closer to me, Lou, this is all I can describe it. The closer he got, it was like this time warp magnification. He was such a large. I'm like, because okay, when you watch basketball, and I know you're basketball. I mean, come on, Lou, you were at an NBA draft. Come on, one of the few. So you know how you look at people like, any point guard in the NBA, right? At 6'3", they look like they're 4 feet tall compared to everybody else, right?
Very true.
Right. So then you get around, and you're like, wait a minute, that guy's 6'3". He's crazy tall, but around these guys. So Larry Fitzgerald doesn't look that big on TV. He looks like a big wide receiver, but he doesn't look like, doesn't look like Shaq or one of these dumb. So he's walking towards him. I'm like, man, that dude's huge. And he walks by, Lou, and his bicep is at my eye level. Okay. And his arms are bigger than my head. And I'm not exaggerating. I'm just watching his bicep walk by. And I was going to say hi and chat it up, but I'm just like, that is the largest person I've ever seen. And it was like watching this, like a transformer, like the cyborg, like it wasn't human. I just watched his bicep go by, and I was like, wow. That was the first time I got awestruck. My buddy came up, he's like, did you talk to Larry? I'm like, no. It was just, I was so impressed with his physique. I was just like, that dude is so massive. Look at him. Oh my gosh. It was so incredible. And so I've laughed about it ever since. So Larry, you are incredible. So I look forward to talking to you one time, but man, his arms again.
We're just going to have to get him as a guest on the show.
No, we must, because I would love to chat it up with him, but it was just, again, sleep deprivation, 5 a.m, and here comes this guy that's twice as big as you thought he was on TV and just ripped and chiseled. And it was just like, wow.
I think he might be. This is really going out there, and I'm, because we obviously know the number one of all time in Jerry Rice, but he's certainly top 5 of all time. He's
got to be. No, I got to say top 2. Other than the brick catcher himself, right?
He's in a class by himself. I was trying to think, is there anybody? I mean, Larry Fitzgerald is godlike, and I remembered that gosh darn Super Bowl that the Steelers stole at the end there when they won, and what an amazing comeback by the Cardinals in that fourth quarter to get in the game when he took off and caught that big play for a touchdown. Help them take
remember
the lead.
Remember the whole Green Bay.
Yeah.
Oh, I still remember that.
But he's just he may be number. Let's put it this way: definitely top 5, possibly top 3. We'd have to do some real. That's going to be another conversation.
Yeah, that's another conversation. I'm going to give him top 2 just because of his character and
his bicep, that he's as big as your head, and the fact that he flies the red eye and sits behind you.
Yes. But no, the last thing was, if you look at where he came from, which is what I love hearing the story, because Larry used to be all about himself. And a lot of people don't know this because you see him now, you're like, oh, he's Mr. Humble, he's Mr. This. He was a diva wide receiver. A lot of people don't know this. When he first came in the league, it was all about him. Give me my numbers, give me my stats. And it wasn't until Kurt Warner kind of sat him down and was like, dude, it's about the team. And to see him make that switch and that maturity and that adjustment to go from me to we was so spectacular.
And he needed a double shift at the supermarket to bag some groceries. So I think, that was really what, no, I'm just kidding.
No, but just to see Larry change and shift and go from crazy diva to team guy, humble guy, character guy, and to wear it well, right? Just to be, so I applaud him just for the personal growth and the way he's carried himself. And how many years, what is he, year 17? I mean,
that alone might be the other reason why he's so high up there. But then again, he's got biceps as big as Evan's head. So and
that is not exaggeration. You will see if anyone ever meets him, they could chime in and be like, actually, they're bigger than that. Oh my gosh.
So by the way, so I'm excited to see where the drafts go. I think what we should do is when the draft concludes, we're going to get all our 7 days after, they go through the online coding and someone's system doesn't crash and there's no hacking involved. We're going to look through it and we're going to see how many of those wide receivers win in those top 3 rounds. And then we got to check and see how they do. So we'll keep tabs on it.
Yes.
So as we progress in our conversation from the timely topics to our timeless topics, Evan gave me a homework assignment, and the listeners need to know what this homework assignment is. He sends me a message that reads, Lou, I want you to come back with the all-time NFL announcing pairs, the duos in the history of sports TV commentary. Come back with the top 5 NFL broadcasting teams. And I have done so. And I know you have as well. Have you not? You're prepared to.
I have. But do you want to go? Do you want to do your list? I do my list, or you want to go compare number 5, number 4?
Yeah, let's do.
How do you want to do it?
Number 5, 4, 4, 3, 3. Okay. So you can go first. You go with your number 5 first.
Ooh, okay.
And I actually have, by the way, logic on why I have selected these guys at the spots that they're in.
Okay.
So you go first.
I've got the emotional side. You've got the logic side. So all right. Okay. We'll give it to you.
There's some emotion thrown in here, but there's some logic too. I'm just making sense.
Okay. So what's so cool is that you and I obviously share similar hairlines. We share similar age demographics. And so what's so cool, I mean, I think I started watching pro football before you, I'll get into that in a second. But I think what's cool about being born at this time is we were around kind of at the birth of television football, broadcasting. I mean, before there was always the radio guys, but to do it with TV, that's a different art.
Actually, I'll add one more piece of commentary to that. And that it was definitely much more important in the 70s, 80s, and 90s on who was actually broadcasting the games. I believe in the last 20 years, because there's so many other outlets and so many games going on at once, that it definitely has taken a back seat. Now, that being said, there are still A teams on all major networks, on CBS, Fox, and on whoever's doing ESPN or NBC, all 4 networks actually, who all have games at certain points. So there's definitely these A teams, and they know what teams they are. So this is important. They get the big games, and they're great. And I just feel that there are certain combos and chemistries that have worked well over the years.
Yes.
So that's what we are here to cover. We're covering it from his, in our opinion. I'll make it clear we didn't go back. My list did not go back to the 1940s and 50s when you had radio and whatnot. I went to more primetime television.
Oh yeah, no, it's got to be TV. Yeah, because the whole radio, that's a whole different art.
Whole other story.
Total different art. So
okay, so you give
television. All right. So number 5 first.
Yep.
Done. Number 5, Jim Nantz and Phil Simms.
So they are great. Are great, but I.
Well, no, I got to tell you why.
Okay, go.
Yeah,
why? Why is Jim Nantz and Phil Simms your number 5?
Okay, so Jim is just one of, there's some guys that are just born for commentation. You've got the ex-pro guy that's the color, but then you got the pure commentary, and just Jim is a pro at the delivery, his voice inflections. And I still remember Jim Nantz had this national commercial where he was broadcasting this guy shopping in the mall.
Yes.
Do you remember that? Trying to find a Christmas present for his wife. And it worked. I'm like, wow, if you could broadcast the dude shopping, you've got skills. But he works so well with Phil. And you can see that now with Tony Romo. And I'm not down on Tony, but Jim and Phil work totally different than Jim and Tony. And so I'm going to give them number 5 just because of the way they were able. You could just tell they were, they had chemistry. Phil is brilliant because he got to grow into it because he's got his other TV stuff going on. And Jim, because he does multiple sports. I think the guys that do multiple sports also have this. So they just had this rare combo. I really believe they're the number 5 of all time. But give me
so just my comment. I'm with you on Phil Simms, who I think once a week he catches up on Mad Dog Sports Radio with Chris Mad Dog Russo, and he gives his Phil Simms talk. And Phil's inner analyses and his ability to do it as the game changed over time.
Yes.
You mentioned about Romo, who obviously has such a good modern day understanding of what's under the helmet today. Simms has been excellent in that regard. Now, as for our good friend, Mr. Jim Nantz, you see, in my mind is the voice for the last almost 40 years. It's 35 plus years, basically, that he's, been the center of attention for CBS. My rankings for his sports things are Masters 1, which great. If you watch TV yesterday, they replayed Tiger winning the Masters last year, and he was interviewing Tiger this year live as they were going through the replay of the tournament. It was actually kind of cool. What were you thinking here? It was actually really good. So I first know him as the Masters voice. I next know him as the voice of the Final Four. And,
yes.
And that's because I'm a huge college basketball NCAA fan. And then I have him as the quarterback there, obviously, for CBS. I think because of that, I don't put him as high in that list. And I may have intentionally not put him in the list because of that. But I will say that Phil Simms, that's a good call. I give you kudos there.
Okay.
That is not my number 5 in my. All right. Okay. My number 5, I'm going quasi old school here because I think these 3 changed how we listen. I
know. Okay.
And I'm talking about Gifford, Cosell, and Don Meredith.
Dandy Don.
Yes. So I went really because I looked at all Monday Night Football announcers, all of them, and recognized that what was very unique, specifically the young Gifford, because Gifford, Frank, what most modern people don't know. He was one of the best quarterbacks, of a whole era, but was also one damn good looking dude and was very charming and had a nice way of explaining the game very calmly. You had the exact opposite as the most famous sportscaster, maybe ever, broadcaster, in Howard Cosell, who more was a storyteller, but obviously had a flair for the dramatic to say the least. It could go all the way. And so Howard was classic that way. And then they threw comedy into the booth.
Yeah, he was the first mater. We just watched Cars 2 last night. So Dandy Don was kind of the first mater of
Yes, and odds are he was intoxicated at least half the time. So, but the three of them for that window of time were game changers. I don't necessarily know if they were the best, but they were game changers as it related to what was the most popular night of television football, Monday Night Football. That's my number 5, Gifford, Cosell, and Meredith.
All right. So this is a perfect segue because Gifford, those three, and I have to look it up because I thought Gifford, I know he played quarterback, but he also played running back.
Yeah, he did both. Yeah, he was an awesome guy. Did everything.
Yeah, which you could also kind of say that about Lamar Jackson today, right? I mean,
right. Yeah, good point.
But think about that, doing that back
and
then.
married Miss America. I mean, come on.
Yes. No, Frank was a man. Frank, got to hand it off to him. So I actually have that as my number 4.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so perfect segue. But here's why for me from the emotional component. So you and I talked about this, I think when we first met was, I come from a normal dysfunctional family, father not in the home, and I'm starving for male mentorship, but I don't know how to ask for it. And I'm a latchkey kid, right? It's the 70s, and I find myself gravitating towards watching Monday Night Football on TV, and that was my male mentorship. That was my fatherhood talks that I never got. Albeit from Howard Cosell, Frank Gifford, and Don Meredith. But what made it so great, it was almost like having 3 uncles that I never had.
Yeah.
Think about it, having 3 dads, right? Like, I knew Cosell was kind of out there, but when Frank Gifford spoke, it was just like, that's right. That's good advice. And then Don Meredith is the wacky uncle, right? So
it's a perfect description. You have one with the good stories, one with the keeping the baseline, which is what Frank did, and Meredith was kooky to say the least. But good.
Yeah, but he was right on something. So it all worked, and so that is like those are my father figures. So I look at that and just talking about the way to play the game and everything I learned about football, I learned from those guys. So I could sit down and have a cry session with all the, guys that never had a father and just looking at it through their eyes. And that's why I love the NFL today.
Yeah.
Because I love the game because that game was like, I don't have a father, but I have football. And
so let's move to my number 4.
Yes.
And it's a shocker in this group, but it isn't if you know me. My number 4 goes to a team that has now worked together, by the way, for 15 years. And they have never been the A team. They're always at another level below, but they know their shit really well. And that is Ian Eagle and Dan Fouts. Now, obviously, I'm a big Dan Fouts fan, so my bias is there. And they do a lot of they actually ping pong back across the country. There's some East Coast, some West Coast games, obviously, because Fouts has some West Coast base. But go watch a game of them doing it. Ian Eagle is one of the best play-by-play voices you'll hear. He's steady. He's got a great pace. You feel like he's moving with momentum, and he shows excitement with great plays. And Fouts, obviously, super analytical, unbelievable the level he's done it. And so the two of them have been together forever and really have never gotten the accolade. So I gave them as some of my like underdog because I've always liked them. I always like when those two were on the air. That's my 4.
Well, I'll tell you, it's interesting. I'm not going to give you my 3, but I'm going to talk about Dan. Okay. So I think Dan was the greatest. This is so interesting. I think Dan was the greatest college football.
Yeah.
As far as color goes.
But I think the 2 of them got promoted up. So they've been doing a ton of it. So
but before that.
Way before. Yeah.
Before Ian, and I'm blanking on his name. I can't believe it. So I'm trying to look it up right here. The greatest college, Keith.
Keith Jackson. Yes.
Keith Jackson. Thank you.
I took Keith out because Keith would have been, the rumbling, stumbling, bumbling.
Yes. But no, Keith was, talk about just, when Keith and Dan Fouts were together, I think that was the greatest as far as cult. They worked so well together. Yeah. Keith talking about the classic, right? Oh, and he takes a lick right there. I mean, it was,
but that's what. So after Keith had kind of retired, yes. They moved the two of them got moved up, and they do tons of NFL game, and they're great. They just have never been the A team, but I think that they really provide excellent data. That's my calls on those. Okay. That's my 4.
I give it to you on Dan. I give it to you on Dan. But okay, Dan and Keith were phenomenal.
So to make it fun, I'll give my 3, and then you give yours, and then we'll go back. Okay. My 3 is probably gonna spark some interest here, but it's hard not to have them. It's Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth.
Okay.
Al Michaels, for so many reasons, and he's been on Monday Night Football in different teams, and he's been with Dierdorf and those guys and whatnot. And while there's a huge number of people that find Chris Collinsworth to be irritating, they're phenomenal together. They are really together are a perfect. I actually think from the play-by-play and color commentary, this is by far they've got their set jobs and they sound and work together smoothly, like almost symphonic in that regard. So when they're on, and they've been on for a very long time, obviously bouncing networks and whatnot, they're great. And whether you like Chris Collinsworth or not, because a lot of people find him to be incredibly opinionated and sometimes outlandish, but most of the time he's damn right about his analysis. So that's my number 3.
They're on my list, but I have to tell you, there's about all mine together. I think you hit it right there. They are the pros.
Yes, great call.
Yes, and what's fascinating to me is, I think Al's one of the greatest of all time as far as all things, just Miracle on Ice, all the stuff he's done, because his wordsmithing is so spectacular. But what a lot of people don't know about Chris, this is why I love Collinsworth, is because Chris is like me. He used to be the spazzy, fun-loving guy, and as he grew and understood, he's really like moved into this smooth, solid professional. And that he had to learn that.
Yeah.
That was not normal for him. So you're seeing like Al and Chris, they've been so seasoned, they've had at least, I think, 20 years of NFL under their belt. We're kind of getting the best of the best of the best. And what looks like so easy for them, it's because they've been doing it for 20 years and getting better at it.
And hardworking. You could definitely see they put their time and effort in.
Yeah.
Oh, so who's your 3?
My 3, I'm going to kind of go a different, kind of like you, not as far back as Dan and Ian, but my 3 was Mike Patrick and Joe Theismann.
Wow. You went there. You went with them.
Yes. And I think Mike Patrick, man, that guy, it's so funny because it's the polar opposite, right? You got Joe Theismann, who's 10. He's got great hair. He's Mr. Quarterback. I mean, he took the biggest hits, right? And here he is. And then Mike Patrick is kind of the anti-athletic guy, right?
That's a good.
But there's something about their tone. When you hear those guys, it brings back memories to me. It's like, oh, this is a good game. Oh, I want to see this game. Oh, I'm involved. Those guys together were seamless. And I really miss Joe Theismann.
Yeah,
Joe Theismann.
He had a window. I think he had a window where he was the best color guy, and then I think it faded. That's my own 2 cents. I don't know. Either that or his ego got in the way.
No, yeah, I could see that. I still remember. He's the coach of the Bucs now, pre-Cardinals coach. Help me.
Coach of the which team now?
Buccaneers.
You're killing me.
Yes. Okay.
Arians. Bruce.
Yes, Arians. Okay. So I remember when Arians retired from the Cardinals and he went into broadcasting, and he went broadcasting for a year, and everybody thought he'd be a natural because just the way he is, his personality. It's like, oh, he's going to be great. The reason he left, he said, for the first time in my life, I felt old. And just that, I guess, that grind of like, okay, here we are talking about it again. So I could see like where Theismann at some point, it's hard not to get tired of it. I think at some point to be like, well, now, what's next, right? Like to sustain your greatness, which is why Michaels and Collinsworth, I think, are so great, is because I think you're right. Like with Joe, is like, well, I don't need to put the work in anymore. I'm Joe Theismann, right? I can just show up and talk. And But again, going back to those two guys, man, when they at their peak, they were phenomenal.
So that's your three. Who's your two?
My two is Michaels and Collins.
Okay, so we covered them. It's good. So my two, and obviously being a Chargers fan, I heard this voice more often than not, as it was more of a West Coast AFC NBC broadcast. Would be Enberg and Olsen.
Oh, Dick Enberg.
The late Dick Enberg.
Yes.
The late Dick Enberg can make a 3-yard outlet pass the most exciting play in the entire world.
Yes.
A legend. He actually is. I think he's the original of the Syracuse University graduates who were all in that broadcasting program.
Oh, yes.
From Costas to Iron Eagle to you name it. There's hundreds of them from that incredible communication program.
Yes.
And Enberg and Olsen, who obviously part of the Fearsome Foursome from the Los Angeles.
Yes.
They the 70s and 80s, and you can go back without a doubt, and I don't know if it's his greatest game, but Enberg called the famous Chargers-Dolphins playoff game that went into double overtime. And someone said you could tape it. I think he said Kellen Winslow's name 100 times in the game. but Dick Enberg and Olsen were awesome because I always felt that they were the 4:00 game because like they would have the West Coast game go on, most of the East Coast games played earlier at 1. And for us people on the East Coast, we would get that afternoon game and there was that extra kick and excitement if you got tired of the first game.
Yes.
So that was my number 2. You know what though? I have a feeling that we both have the same number 1.
Yes, I think we do. But let me go back to Dick Enberg. He's one I forgot about, but he's one of those voices where you hear his voice and I'm immediately brought back to emotions and great games. And it's just like, there's a rush. There's like an adrenaline rush when I hear his voice. As you recall, I sent you that we were talking about songs and music for the podcast. I sent you that highlight. It was the music, but it was also the voice of Dick Enberg for that highlight play from the Tennessee Titans. And there's just something about his voice. So thank you for reminding me of how great he was. So
he was awesome. Now, so that was my number 2. Who was your number 2?
Oh, no, my number 2 was Michaels and Collins.
Oh, Michaels. Okay, so wait. So now we're at our number 1.
Our number 1. But you had the perfect segue.
Yes.
Because not putting him down, but you talked about Dandy Don, definitely, there were many Monday nights where those guys were not sober when they were doing the podcast.
There's not a chance. Not a chance.
And
I always think, just as a side note from commentaries, still one of the most underrated movie performances of all time goes to Bob Uecker in the movie Major. And my favorite is they're at the absolute bottom of the season and he's drinking his, Jack Daniels, and he tells his color commentator partner, who doesn't say much, he's like, "Michael, take over. I'm in the bag." He just like passes. That's kind of where I think Don Meredith. Yes.
But this is a perfect segue because that was Pat Summerall, but a lot of people don't know he was the functional alcoholic.
Yeah, he was. So I think we agree that the number 1 all-time NFL announcers are Mr. Madden and Mr. Summerall.
But let me give some back history because I love giving everybody the story. So Pat Summerall, that's one of those, you hear that voice and they're, again, like God's gift to play-by-play, something about Pat Summerall's voice where you're just like, oh, and then you mix it with Madden's spazziness, which is why I love him. But Summerall was so great. A lot of people don't know that it was a total accident how he got into broadcasting. He happened to pick up the phone. He was with him and his buddy were roommating at the hotel for whatever reason. And the call was for his roommate. And they're like, "Hey, this is so-and-so with, ABC. He's, can he come down?" And Pat's like, "Well, hey, I'd like to try." And they said, "Oh, okay, you can come too." It was a total accident. But Summerall, man, oh man, oh man. Yeah, just greatest of all time, just the way he could spin the tales, just something about his inflections and his voice. And then when I learned the whole alcohol issue thing, it was like, man, and he was that was like one of those where I just, the great pilot, right? I just need something to steady my nerves, right? So he would just show up and spin this story. And I don't even have the words to describe how great those guys
were. Well, I think that's even a better segue, Evan, because as we segue over to talking about Madden and why he is arguably the best color commentator of all time in football, and certainly the pair of them, is because there were no words. As I'll give for those who are listening and are too young and you only know Madden for your video games, you have to understand an important part of Mr. Madden were three key elements to why this man was so good in the booth. One is the term onomatopoeia, which is basically, those are the words that are described by the sounds of what they are, like boom and whack and thud. And he would actually interplay the sounds of the game in describing a play. There he is right there. Here comes the tackle, boom. And he'd do it in the slow-mo. And you'd watch the player guy get hit and he'd throw the sound effect in and you'd be listening to it saying, who would ever do such a thing? But he would actually put the sound effect in what you were really thinking. That was yes. Part one. Part two was the teleprompter.
Ah, yes. I was going to say, talk about the teleprompter. Yeah.
And the teleprompter thing was so incredible because Madden would go crazy. First of all, he was a coach, so he would chalkboard all the time. But now the technology starts coming out and you're able to draw on the screen and it's between the play of action. And here you have a guy who's basically just literally doing Etch-a-Sketch and drawing all over the place. Nobody can make out his X's and O's. He's just basically making circles and lines and things. And he's kind of almost lineman-like. That's what when he played, he was a lineman. So he's got big, funky fingers and he's drawing and he's a genius of a coach, Super Bowl winning coach, but he's making all this commentary and running around. He's like, move it over here, move it over there. And you're watching this on television and you understand it. It's incredibly entertaining for you to enjoy it. So you have the sound effects, you have the writing of the hands, but without a doubt, my favorite with him and my all-time best in carrying this all forward was the Thanksgiving football game. Now, unfortunately for CBS, and those contracts have changed because they were the CBS A-team crew.
Yes.
CBS had the Lions game because that was locked in and it was always the Lions. And the Lions have been terrible for most of the years we've been watching it. And the other game was, remember, a Cowboys game that would jump around, and odds are they had the Lions game. So on one particular game, the Lions actually did win, and they were and he was so into the fact that they would bring the turkey. Remember, he actually gave the all Madden Thanksgiving turkey team, and he would give who he was going to give the legs to.
Yes. Was it the Treduncan? Was he the guy that?
Well, before the Treduncan was the famous. There was nothing going on in the game because the game was terrible. So the cameraman just settles in on the turkey that they've roasted and they're going to give to the players. And he takes the teleprompter and he starts drawing. Well, first we're going to give this leg to the offensive line. We're going to give the breast and the wing to the defensive line. We're going to give this to the center, and we're going to give this part of the bird right in here, the stuff. And he's drawing all over the bird on the television. If I have to find the clip, it is by far one of the funniest moments you'll ever watch because, by the way, the game was irrelevant.
Yes.
This was an entertainer in the commentary role, and I think why the fact that he didn't fly in planes and he drove everywhere, he became cult-like, almost like every time that they had the Madden game and it showed up, he'd go to the tailgates and party and look like the football fan. Yep. Why we all identified. So that's my Madden rant there, but
love it.
We're all together. Just absolutely classic.
Yep. And I'll end it with what I love. I think about you and I love about Summerall was Summerall never tried to change John. He would just be like, well, John, okay. He would just leave it at that. Right. And so you put up with my spazziness and my blah, and Summerall just had a way of just like, this smooth Southern, just like, again, Madden just did this Da Vinci work of art on the play-by-play telestrator, and Summerall would sum it up in 2 words in the natural segue. Well, John, okay. Just the way he did it was just so masterful. It was just like, yes.
Kind of like you and me in this booth right here. So,
yes.
So, hey, dude, we got a fun show. We covered our trivia. We covered our wide receiver timely topics, and obviously these timeless NFL announcers. We just had to do it because we feel like them when we're here on the podcast. So
yes, Evan. And you get the special award. You get 2 awards. So I'm gonna dissect 2 turkey legs. You get the turkey leg award for the best trivia. That was glorious. And then the secondary trivia. And then you get both legs. You get the second leg for Dick Enberg. So I'm just Lou Diamond, you brought it today, my friend.
Today I brought my game. Well, with that, man, we'll get them the next time. And we want to thank our listeners, man. Keep thriving onward and upward.
And life is tremendous.
You've been listening to Diamond Cuts Money Talks with Lou Diamond and Evan Money. Download, subscribe, and listen wherever you get your podcasts. And share this episode with your friends in the Good Pods app. Thanks for listening.